people, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Beloved and Kindred. We felt like this was going to be a special episode, so we figured we'd come together for this last episode for this season, and bring you all, Vampire in Brooklyn, our featured film today. Because we just needed to be together and discuss this
to
film.
really talk about it, like really.
Yeah. So, my name is Grace Gipson. I'm an assistant professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in the Department of African American Studies.
I am Kanika Robinson. I'm a visiting assistant professor in the Department of African Studies at the University of Pittsburgh.
All righty. So, a couple of little pre-notes before we dive in.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely want to make sure we acknowledge the passing of Paul Mooney,
right.
one of the most unapologetic comedians, Black people person ever.
Yeah, always saying what's on his mind, even though it's like, ooh, that's kind of touchy. But okay, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to what you were saying. He's definitely unapologetically Black. He was just himself. And he really emphasized the importance of being yourself and not trying to change yourself for popularity.
Absolutely. Like he said the things that we were always thinking.
Yes, exactly.
That we were like, I can't say that because I want to keep my job.
But you're a comedian. You go ahead, Paul Mooney. You got this. You got this.
Yeah. So he had this one quote that we had found that kind of really speaks to what we've been talking about on this podcast, what we've been talking about just in life. And he says, quote, "If you have money and you have fame, but you don't have any confidence in your Blackness, then it's all for nothing."
Right.
And so I think that's one of his more tamer quotes, because he's definitely had some very interesting things, very colorful words, attached with his thoughts. But I think that one really kind of best summed up a lot of, especially what we're going to talk about today,
right,
as well as just, just in life.
Yeah, because it really goes back to, be, like he said, be confident in your Blackness and love who you are and, really embrace that versus trying to act against who you really are.
Yep.
And it goes right into even our conversation on Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it because you see different aspects of Black culture in this film. And so let's kind of the setting of it.
All right. So set us up for, the film and what we get into before we actually get in the film. Right.
So it came out in 1995. It was an Eddie Murphy production. But it was directed by Wes Craven. Now, we all know Wes Craven. Like, I love Wes Craven. Like, he came up with the Nightmare on Elm Street, which is one of my favorite horror series. Like, I love it.
Freddy Krueger
is everything. I mean, he comes to your dreams. Like, you can't... it's amazing. I love Freddy Krueger. So, it was directed by... Wes Craven again, and it was set in New York, Brooklyn. Well,
specifically, yeah.
Eddie Murphy's from Brooklyn, and so here at this, and we'll talk about it more later. You see this hodgepodge of culture of the African diaspora. Right. You see again African American. You see Afro Caribbean. You see Afro Latinx. You see all these different cultures here in this New York, Bronx, Brooklyn setting. And it's very interesting to really see that in this film. But that is what Eddie Murphy does. Right. He really talks about Blackness and its nuances, and it's not always just one way. We're not a homogenous group. We are multiple. We are diverse in our experiences, and yet we're also same in our experiences. And so we see this in Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yep. And in addition, so Vampire in Brooklyn is a horror movie, but it's also comedy. Yes. So you have this combination of this comedy horror cult classic.
Yeah.
Because when we think about horror, you're not often laughing. Because what's funny about dying or somebody chasing after you? Like, there's nothing funny about that.
Nightmare on Elm Street is not a comedy.
At all. It's not at all. But because it's Eddie Murphy, we know we're getting some comedy. We know we're getting some laughs. We know we're getting something, whether it's from him or someone else. Right. Also should note that his brother, Charlie Murphy, was one of the writers and screenplay writers of the film. So, a lot of people fail to realize Charlie was doing a lot of stuff.
Yes, he was. I know a lot of people really got to know him in Dave Chappelle, but he has been active in Eddie Murphy's films. Even back to Harlem Nights when he was in the scenes. Well, he was a part of their ensemble cast.
Right.
So yeah, it is very interesting that we see Charlie.
And speaking of ensemble cast, this film also, like every other Eddie Murphy production, has a very much a all-star black cast.
Yes.
So we got Eddie Murphy, obviously. We got the legendary, amazing, my birthday twin, Angela Bassett.
Congrats.
We got Kadeem Hardison, the late, great John Witherspoon, Alan Payne.
Yes.
So these are like, these some people. These some big names.
Right.
You know, these ain't no little, no shrimps here. We talking about something like a different world. We talking about name something Angela Bassett has done. That's just great.
In everything?
Everything.
911, like that's a TV show, but she's great in everything. Like
What's Love got to do with it? Malcolm X. I mean,
Yeah.
And then we got John Witherspoon with, and being the voice of Grandpa in the Boondocks.
Yes.
So, this was, he was true to form.
What about Alan Payne? He was in
Jason's Lyric,
New Jack City.
Yep.
And so he was in some classics during that time. And I mean, he acts now. I think he's in Tyler Perry.
House of Pain.
Yeah. But he's excellent actor. And he needs more credit. Honestly.
Absolutely. So we're beginning to see, this kind of entry point of black lead star power.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 1995 is when this film comes out. It's not like we saw a lot of like black films with these black casts. And so here's one that's definitely given us that.
Right.
And, in big ways. So.
And I didn't really see, Blackula, of course, we know it came out earlier. We're going to reference that in a couple of seconds. But I never really saw black horror in that way until I saw Vampire in Brooklyn, which was great. And,
even though, yes, it's very campy, it's very much, people may not consider this part of the horror genre, but it is.
It's scary.
There's some moments of scariness, yes.
I'm a bit biased because I love scary movies. So I live for those. But it's horror.
It is, it's horror. And the fact that, if anything, it kind of diversified what horror can be.
Yes, exactly.
So if nothing else, it paves the way for your Get Outs, for your, Us, for your Them, for your, pick it, a new film, Antebellum, it offers an entry point for those films and television series to, produce that type of content.
And we also had Candyman around that time too.
Yep, that's right.
Candyman, which is excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want
another
to
classic. Classic.
I love it.
That's horror all the way through and through.
Absolutely. Nothing's funny.
Yeah. At all. Then we also have some like throwback references. So definitely, if you look at the Maximilian character, which is played by Eddie Murphy, he definitely is very much reminiscent of Nick Ashford from Ashford and Simpson.
Yes.
You can't deny that at all.
Absolutely. Come on.
Clear as day. Very much.
Everything.
It was probably intentional.
It had to be intentional. It's too much. MC Hammer.
Yes.
MC Hammer and Salt and Pepper. We get some references from them. First of all, they were great. They still are great. They were definitely at the height of their fame at that time.
Right.
We would never forget Too Legit to Quit. And Salt and Pepper, what was their biggest song?
At that time, Push It was around that time.
Push It?
Yeah, maybe.
But Salt and Pepper has always been on top. They're awesome trendsetters. Just like MC Hammer and those Hammer Pants. What was their official name?
Harem Pants.
Harem.
Yeah, Harem Pants.
They're Hammer Pants.
Hammer Pants.
It's cute.
I think I had a couple. I know I had a couple of
Hammer Pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also got, although he's not black, but we definitely see a reference to Dorian Gray. So if you're familiar with the Dorian Gray series or story and his whole thing with mirrors.
Right.
So there's a scene where Maximilian's like, get rid of all these mirrors.
Yeah.
Get rid of, so that's a very clear reference to Dorian Gray right there.
Yes.
And I'm thinking Eddie Murphy probably knows this, or at least Wes Craven is informing him of this, So
Dorian Gray is a classic. It's a classic book. It's a classic novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you also mentioned Blackula, and how this is definitely kind of like an ode to that.
Blaxploitation movies. It's like this, because Blackula was directed by William William Crane, and it was this whole thing of, okay, Black as a lead. That was the key to Blaxploitation.
Right.
Because, at the time, Black characters were usually sidekicks, or they were performing stereotypes in certain ways. And so Blaxploitation was a thing where, okay, we're going to show Black people in the lead. And Blackula was one of the first film, and Sweetback's badass song.
It's a long title there, yeah. Long title.
Was one of the films. Now, again, you have to be mindful. Now, Blaxploitation was a great opportunity for Black filmmakers and screenwriters to really get out there. And one of the main leads was Melvin Van Peebles, who did Sweetback's badass song. Now, again, only watch that. Now, watch that movie like 25 or older. It's not really.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, definitely 25 or older, if not 30 and older.
I would say 30. Like, I mean, you say, 30 or older. But you see even that Blackula or Blaxploitation in what Eddie Murphy does, where he makes Black people the main characters and not sidekicks.
Right.
Like they are at the forefront of it. And we see it in, this film, Vampire in Brooklyn. We see it in Life.
Yep.
First of all, Life is Life. But we'll talk about that.
So great, yeah.
We have it in
Harlem Nights.
Harlem Nights, Coming to America.
1 and 2.
1 and 2. And so usually he in his movies, he's like, we can be the centerpieces of the story.
Right. In multiple ways.
In multiple ways. And so again, even though it's not considered Blaxploitation or a part of that genre, we can see how he was heavily influenced by such. And we see again in Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yes. So all of these things are happening. All of those moments are taking place. We're seeing various, nods to different films, to different people, to different musical genres. It packs a lot.
Yes, it does.
In this movie. So,
yes, it does.
So now we just set the background. Let's set the scene of the film. So they say pre-gentrified Brooklyn. I think it's very worth noting.
Yes.
Pre-gentrified Brooklyn. You have this vampire named Maximilian, who comes into New York through this ship, which definitely we seeing some references to, transatlantic slave trade, all of that, because the ship is it's a relic.
Yes.
It's old.
Yes.
It crashes into the dock. And, he's coming in search of the last vampire in his coven. And in that, prior to him forming or becoming the vampire, he's also a wolf. He was a wolf first. Right. So you got John Witherspoon and Kadeem Hardison who see this boat come in and they're like, what in the world? Like, what is going on?
Right.
You know how we do, we see something foreign, you're like, am I about to get fired? Because that looks like that's about to like tear up some stuff.
Exactly.
So
that was good.
Yeah. So he's coming in to find the last vampire in his coven to, so that his whole race is not eliminated. And if you think about it, you kind of referenced this earlier, most of Eddie Murphy's movies take place in New York. Right. Very much, in Black and Latino communities. So we always going to see New York in some sort of way, whether it's Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem. He almost hits up every borough. In his film.
Right. So that was definitely very interesting.
What else? So we got that. And then if we think about the history of Blackness and vampires, so Maximilian, he expresses that, quote, vampires with taste went to the south of Africa and eventually over the Atlantic. This is a straight connection to the transatlantic slave trade. Straight up, all the way.
Absolutely.
And, how people came over, to the U.S., whether by choice, most of the time it wasn't, into these communities, into this world. And it also, we're seeing not only, this reference to the transatlantic slave trade, but also the fact that we see a lot of diaspora communities in New York. That's very present.
Because you can see that even in how he was like, people were spread out, and then, how there's this constant movement of Black people around the world, and especially in the Western Hemisphere. Like, they were brought or taken, definitely we didn't get here by choice. Many of us didn't get here by choice. But, most of us, transatlantic slave trade was not a cruise ship. So when, we all came from Africa to these different countries in the Western Hemisphere, he speaks of that, like you said, in this conversation, and we see how, okay, yes, we may have been spread, but we're all still a part of the same community, and many of us migrated to New York. forming this Brooklyn, this particular locale.
Right.
So, yeah.
We also seen, you know, the usage of Vodun. So we're seeing a lot of African spirituality, you know, throughout. There's definitely, you know, some significant scenes where we're like immersed in this, you know, diasporic culture. So yeah, we're definitely getting a little bit of that and a little bit of history. And I got to give, you know, Eddie Murphy credit. Like whether this was intentional or not, he dives into some stuff, you know, through his films. We get a little history, you know, in it. So
because again, it goes back to Blackness being multiple. We can be Christian and we can also believe in Vodun. We are, you know, we are part of different aspects of the globe. You know, we have some Caribbean culture that's a part of our community, just like, you know, African American culture. And so again, you see that when you brought up Vodun, and so he really does dive into our multiplicity. And I guess he experienced that when he was in Brooklyn. Right. And he experienced like we were never just this one way. We were always multiple. Exactly. And so yeah, you definitely see that in this film.
So then tell us about Rita.
So Rita is the main woman. She's Angela Bassett's, well, that's Angela Bassett's character. And here she is half woman. Her mother was a human, a full human. Her father was a vampire. So she's half human and a vampire. And so because of her vampire-ness, she has a sixth sense. And you see this throughout this film, like she notices things that normal people would not notice because of her vampire-ness. And so one thing that's important is, you know, how Maximilian came over because she was going to be the person to save all the vampires, or him and whoever, or keep the coven from being extinct. So again, you see how Black women are powerful in this moment. Like we need a Black woman to save us, to, you know, help us not become extinct and things of that nature. And so that was really, really an interesting aspect of her. And she was very expressionistic. Like she, I don't know if there's a word, but I'm using it. I mean, why not? Let's do this. So, you know, she was a painter and she had this forethought, which was again a part of her sixth sense. So she was able to paint things that would happen. Right. So you see this creative side of her. You see this strong side of her, even in the midst of her going through all these different things, where, you know, Maximilian acting crazy and she's still like, okay, I'm still strong. I still got this. Right.
She was definitely able to tap into creative side. And like you said, the fact that a Black woman was used to be the vessel. He could have picked another Black man. Right. He could have said another just vampire, not a woman, just another vampire like him was going to save the coven. Right. So, which speaks to like Black women are important.
We are important.
Our presence is needed.
Yes, we're absolutely needed. But also in the needing of our presence, sometimes we are abused.
Yes, unfortunately so. Yeah, now, there is still the struggle.
Now, I don't want to critique this movie because this was a different time and a different conversation, different context. But we have to be realistic based on what we know now in our conversation on gender and intersectionality, these different conversations like that. He was a stalker.
Very much so.
He, and you know, brought up before we talked about how it was Fatal Attraction Vampire Edition, where he killed and manipulated everyone that was in his way of getting her. Right. He even like manipulated her roommate, her in some weird way, her roommate, and also her best friend, her partner.
Her partner, because she's a police officer.
Yeah, she's a police officer. And then, you know, her whole thing was, I want to go and explore the world. I want to be great. And he used that to manipulate her to fall for him. And then he made her into something she didn't want to become. Right. When he bit her, she became this vampire-like, or her father's side came out. Right. And so in that, it was like, he said something of, I didn't want to be this. Yeah. That's what she said. I didn't want to be this. And he said, that's what you said, like you wanted this. Right. And so it's kind of like, isn't this a case of like, she said no? Yeah. Type of thing. And it was like, consent is key here.
There you go. Exactly.
She said, I want to explore the world, because he was selling things to her like, oh, you can, you know, go beyond the lines of Brooklyn. You can go see the world, you can do everything. And then he bit her without her consent. Because he wanted to save the coven. Right. Not for her benefit. Yeah. Not so she can see the world because she just wanted to see the world and he loved her so. It was for his benefit. So in her using her strength really as a weapon against herself. Right. And so it's very interesting seeing how the gender roles were happening into this. When you see how this black woman who has been strong and was strong throughout the movie was being used by Maximilian.
Right.
And even to the point where he was like, your father sent me to you.
Right.
It's like, so, okay, fine, but I'm still my own person.
Right.
And so you see even the men in her life saying, oh, we want to control you. And then even Justice feeling entitled to being her romantic partner.
Right. Justice is Alan Payne's character.
Alan Payne's character.
Yeah.
The partner. But then, one thing about Eddie Murphy, and I know I'm not the last conversation, but one thing about Eddie Murphy is he will still bring it back to where women feel empowered.
Right.
And so we must recognize this, because even in the end, once he made her a vampire, so to speak, she continued to fight against becoming fully a vampire.
Right.
She continued to say, no, I don't want to be that. So even though he tried to make her into something, she continued to fight against it, and even at the end, she won. So that shows you the strength of a black woman, where it's like, oh, you may trick us, but we still got it.
Right.
And in this, you see her saying, I am acting against this oppression. I won't let you control me and my destiny. I will take control of who I am. And it was hard.
Oh, yeah.
It was hard.
But this is real life.
Right.
For black women. So this becomes where, when we bring in, the ways in which folks like Toni Morrison and Octavia Butler bring in the fantastical into the real life.
Right, right.
And Eddie Murphy kind of does that here. Like, these are real life reflections of what women go through. Maybe not the exact, verbatim, but we go through obstacles.
Yes.
We go through people telling us that we can't do something.
Right.
Or that's too much. Maybe you should try something else.
Right, right. Or you should, maybe subdue your excellence.
Exactly.
Because you have to. You have to you're doing too much.
Or else you're not going to succeed.
Right.
Or people are going to look at you differently. They're going to treat you differently. And so, like you say, in the end, when we listen to ourselves and who we are trying to be and what we're trying to achieve, we ultimately will get the goal. We will get to the finish line.
Yes.
But on our terms.
Yeah. Right. I think that's key too, on our terms. Right. It's about how they try to, like in this movie, you see Maximilian try to take the power away from her. And even Justice was kind of fighting, like, I want you to be with me. It was, and she was like, I need to do this for myself.
Right. Right.
And so even that's like taking your power back. And it's a long struggle for black women sometimes, because we go through so much. Like you said, people telling us how we should be, how we should behave. Don't be too much, but don't be too little.
Right. And
you see here how Rita was like, "Bet I'm still going to win. I am who I am."
And we see. So you mentioned how like he in other films that Eddie Murphy has done, black women are empowered. So we think about like in Harlem Nights, we think about Jasmine Guy's character, LaRue. She was empowered, even in a way that people were like, but she was like the villain in a way. She was the bad guy. But at the same time, she was like, this is who I am.
Right.
This is what I do. I'm not shamed by it.
Right.
You're not going to throw respectability politics and say this is how I should operate as a woman.
Right.
Take me as I am. And then you have in what else? Coming to America, his bride. She was very much confident. Like, this is what I want. My daddy not gonna tell me how I should live my life. If I want to marry this guy, this is who I'm gonna marry. This is who I'm gonna choose to be with.
And even in Coming to America too, how his daughter became the princess, or
the queen. Well, I guess the next on the throne.
Yeah, the next on the throne. And that to me was wonderful. Even though I still don't understand why he had that lady hopping that long. Anyway,
I don't know. He does deviate. Now sometimes he don't get it right.
Not everyone's perfect.
Not everybody's perfect.
Let's be honest with that.
We'll just say Norbit is an example of where like black women are used as buffoons, where and it wasn't just black women, but black women are definitely very much a highlight of the buffoonery. Yeah,
this whole trend of performing black womanness.
Just not everybody, but don't do it.
Just if you can stay away from it, we'll appreciate it. And if you want to perform black womanness, or if this is your thing, respect black womanhood in your performance.
There we go.
It's about not making fun of the way we are, not making fun of how we do our hair, how we speak, how we behave. We are not caricatures of people. We are people. We are human. If you want to perform us, then perform us with respect. If you must perform us.
Right.
You can also hire a Black woman. Just options. But if you want to perform us, at least perform us with respect.
Right.
Don't, caricature our behavior. Don't make us seem like, if you're a Black woman, you're ultra ghetto or you're too aggressive.
Right.
Or, and this whole idea, what is ghetto? What does that even mean?
Right.
And we really need to tackle and deal with that issue too of performing Black womanhood and how offensive it could be to a Black woman.
Right.
And how people assume things about you because of these caricatures of what Black women are.
And basically, dismantling a lot of these tropes that are existing. Like we got to really, move away from, embodying the Jezebel, the mammy, like in a way that makes us look less than.
Right.
So, yeah. But like I said, Eddie Murphy's catalog, he gets some stuff right.
Yeah.
He gets some stuff wrong too. But,
okay, but in Coming to America, though, he did stop her from hopping at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, but it happened. Granted, I thought it was over, but for these many years, he was still hopping, waiting for something.
She was still waiting.
But, I was happy that he did stop that. Like, he acknowledged that, I'm sorry.
I think she had become bitter by that point.
You don't really have much of a choice. I'm seeing her hopping, waiting for you to come back.
So,
oh, that was funny. Okay, wait. Okay.
So, let's transport back to Vampire, but let's go back to Brooklyn. So there was also some elements of escapism. We definitely see a lot of transformation. So you spoke to some of this when she kind of taps into the vampire side.
Right.
When she was always in a trance when she was doing her art. It was like she would transport to another place, or she would go in her dreams, be deep within it. It
really does speak to many of the things we have done over this particular season of our show has some element of escapism.
Right.
It has been a way for us to, in unique ways, via trance, via religion, via just whatnot, creativity, finding ways to escape our condition.
Right.
It has been, we see through these different series how it's like we may be here, but we see ourselves beyond.
Yeah.
So this idea of escapism, this need to change, it has been a constant. Like we are beyond what we are now. Like we are more than just our current situation and the context of where we are.
Right. And it's also trying to figure out how to escape. Yeah. So it's like we go into these places of escape, but it's like, how do we further get out of that? How do we even come back?
Right.
Once we've escaped, how do we return back, to reality or to what's, going on in the present? So, we see a lot of transformation, a lot of escapism. Pretty much everything that we've talked about this season definitely tackles those themes for sure.
And also we have the issue of the stereotypical Jezebel of her roommate, Nikki. She
became that one who was just disposable in a way, easily disposable.
Like, we know her?
And the way it happens so fast, you're just like, wow, you didn't give her no time to develop.
No.
There was no development with this character. It was a very whoop, okay, she's a Jezebel. She coming after her partner, and since she couldn't get him, she gonna get somebody else. Like there was no growth,
at
all.
No growth.
It was like what you see, what you get with her.
Right. She was a pawn in his scheme, and so when she first showed up in the scene, we're like, oh, new character. Hey, Nikki. And then next thing you know, she's an over-sexualized Black woman who tries to go with justice. Then she immediately sleeps with Maximilian. Then she dies.
She's actually kind of murdered.
She was murdered. I'm sorry, I apologize. She was killed.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's it. She was overly sexual. And it was like, even though justice was trying to deny her advances, in the movie, it was showing that she just could not control her impulse to always want to be with him. And then that same night ended up going with Maximilian.
Yeah.
We don't know who she is. We have no idea, the type of person she is. Whether she worked, I don't know. They probably said it, but we weren't sure. We don't know her, but we just know she was just hypersexual. And then she was, depicted as the stereotypical hypersexual, you know, the big earrings, the, you know, braids, the attitude, talking a certain way, and, you know, the nails. It was like, oh, look at this.
The hair movement. Yeah. A lot of that. Yeah.
It was like, oh, you cute, you know, and it's like, you know, making fun of even that.
Right.
And saying, people, this is people who actually live like this. That's fine. It's part of who we are as Black women. And you're making fun of that type of Black women.
Yep.
But you have on the other side, you know, you have the Rita, who's put together, who you know, speaks in a regal way, who has straight hair, who don't have the long nails. So you're demonizing even our culture in that.
Right.
We have big earrings, we have nails, and sometimes we talk like this, and that's okay because that's part of our behavior and our culture.
Yep.
And but again, you see the two being played against each other, the roommates.
There we go.
Where you see a quote unquote ghetto or a promiscuous Black woman,
right,
against this straight lace Black woman with straight hair, you know, non-natural hairstyle. Again, I love Angela and I love Eddie, but we do have to speak against these two depictions of Black women in this one apartment in this movie.
The scene is good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad. Like, you know, you have the evil of the sexual woman who's deserving to be killed. No one questioned her death. And so like, oh my gosh, she died, we're sad. But what's going on, Rita? You turned to a vampire? It's like, is anyone going to investigate the death of Nikki?
And that was something that I was like, so we're not going to like put it in, you know, like I said, an investigation. We're not going to dive in deeper into like how she also was on the top of their apartment building in this very crucified manner. Like, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to address the fact that this woman just gone.
Right, she's gone. And it speaks to the invisibility of Black women. If you're not the appropriate, or what's considered the appropriate Black woman. Like, no one said, oh, we're going to do a huge investigation to what happened to Nikki. It was like, oh, Nikki.
She just gone, sorry.
Oh, but we need to figure out what's going on with Rita, because Rita acting funny.
Casualty. She was just a disposable casualty. And so, yeah, well, like you said, we don't know her last name. We don't know what she do. We barely, you know, see her enough.
Right.
To even like get anything.
Did she get credit in the movie? She was in there for like 2 minutes.
Well, she got a name. She had a name. So, you know,
so she got credit.
She got credit for something. So, yeah. So we, you know, once again, even though we see a highlight of Black women, we also see examples of why it is important to make Black women visible. All Black women. All
Black women. And all of us are great equally. Even if we don't, you know, walk the same, talk the same, are the same, because we are multiple. Just like with every aspect of Blackness, we are multiple, and we should be appreciated in our multiplicity. We should not be put against each other because one person behaved different than the other.
Right.
And, you know, again, not to critique the movie. Well, I guess it's to critique.
It is critique. Yeah.
It's critique, and it's fine to critique because you know
nothing's perfect.
Right, nothing's perfect.
No.
But you know, we do see this interplay between these two types of Black women, as though, like you said, one is evil and one is good. And
we would be doing you all a disservice if we didn't address that.
Yeah.
Because you all would think, oh, they're gonna just say all these great things about the movie and not. No,
right.
we have to, you know, we got to pinpoint the moments that could have been better.
Right.
You know.
Because it was definitely hard watching it this second time without critique.
I do recall watching it the very first time. I mean, it came out in 95, so I was a freshman in high school. So, you know, you're watching it not thinking about a lot of what we're talking about. Like, I wouldn't, you know, that wasn't coming to mind. If anything, I was like, what just happened?
Right.
Like, dang, she killed that. They killed her that fast. You know, so yeah, as we get older and more mature and more informed, we learn how, that wasn't necessarily an okay thing.
And I even think probably say like, that's why she, you know, she shouldn't have been so sexual anyway.
Right.
She would have been all right if she stayed in her room and not try, you know, accusing her.
Exactly.
You know, but then watching this time, it was like, this is not okay.
That wasn't okay.
This is not okay. We can't support this. So you're right. We had to say something about it because the second time I was like, oh, no. So yeah.
Now, something that comes up that I asked you and wondered if you maybe knew or understood. There's a lot of red and black going on.
Your shirt's really black.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, maybe I'm thinking too hard. That's the academic in me. Maybe I'm thinking too hard that, you know, red and black, there's some significance. Maybe, you know, there's some devil significance. I don't know. Maybe there's some, you know, black with the skin, red of the blood, you know, vampires like blood. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too much. But maybe you all might have some thoughts on like what the red and black means. And maybe it means nothing. But it was, Maximilian, all he wore was red and black. And every time Rita would go out, especially when they went on that date, it was in red and black.
Yeah.
Everything, there was some type of connect back to the red and black. So, like I said, I might be reading too much into it. I don't know. We'd be curious to see what y'all think.
But even what you just said, I think was very interesting. Like maybe the red is the blood. Mm-hmm. Where, you look at the blood of the vampires, the blood that was spilled on our, of us, like our blood being spilled, and then you see this blackness where you see this power and the strength of this blackness, even in that conversation where you see these interplay. Mm-hmm. Maybe stretching it, but hey, it may just be good for color. I don't know.
Right. It was a thought, just a thought. So we talked about early on the whole diasporic connection, through the New York and the Caribbean. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we see, definitely Christianity plays, a role where, particularly the scene where they go to the church and Eddie Murphy has, shape-shifted into this preacher. I'm sorry, not Eddie Murphy. Maximilian has shape-shifted into this preacher. And as he's attempting to walk into the church, you see a lot of like steam coming from back behind his head.
He said, "Let's go outside."
And it reminded me of Lovecraft Country when Christina tried to roll up on Letty's house.
Yes.
And thank goodness for it being marked and blessed, because it was like, pause, stop.
Right.
You're not coming in. You can't just walk up in here. Mm-hmm. And the same with Vampire in Brooklyn.
Right.
He doesn't even walk close enough into the door before it's like, I can't go in. I can't go in. Can we meet out? Like you said, can we meet outside?
Let's go outside.
Because it's getting hot up in here.
And then even in that moment where he wants to meet outside and everyone just go outside, not questioning. Right. Like you're following this leader and you don't even know who this leader is. And it's like, you see his hair catching on fire.
And nobody thought,
no one said,
I didn't see that.
Like he just suddenly caught on fire. And let's have our church outside. I may go outside just to see what's going on. But then it just really speaks to, again, where you have this unwavering following of certain leaders without knowing who they really are.
Right.
And so that was very interesting.
There was no questioning of the fact that this man just said, all of a sudden, we're going to just meet outside.
And then when he was like, he said something, we need some evil in this world.
Right.
Like, we need a little evil. And people were confused. They're like, okay. All right.
I'm sure we've had some experiences where maybe folks in different areas of worship have heard people say things that were like, what did he or she say? Mm-hmm. Like, did they really just say that?
Right.
There's been some questionable, remarks. I remember you just told me one recently of a certain political figure in the state of Georgia who said some questionable things.
Very questionable.
But we're not even going to mention his name because we don't even want to give him that moment.
Absolutely.
He doesn't deserve that. But so in that, we also look at how faith is used and talked about. Like there's this guy, Dr. Zemo, who is one of the people connected to the case and is helping out Rita and Justice. And, he even mentions to Rita, like, make sure you keep the faith, your belief. Right. So you can even see this whole, like, don't go to the dark side, I guess. Right. Like, hold on to what you believe. Hold on to your value. Hold on to, that faith.
Right. And so even though, he was about practicing Vodun, he was like, but I respect your religion. And, it's like, it's not necessarily us going against each other.
Right.
This is all a part of who we are. We have bits and pieces of every culture.
Yep.
And so even in that, like, keep your faith. It's like, I respect your faith.
Exactly.
Just like she respected his. It was never like, oh, I don't believe you. Justice was like that. But it wasn't about justice.
It wasn't.
She was like, I thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And speaking of justice is kind of like, fear or scaredness. People fear what they don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's it.
And if you can't see it, if you can't touch it, a lot of people are kind of like, I can't believe it. But it's interesting because when you think about Christianity, like you can't touch faith.
You cannot.
You can't touch all of that, but yet we have that faith. We work with that. We believe in that. So why is it so hard for you to believe in other things that are not their existence?
Exactly.
So
that is true.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna make that argument. The same argument can be said about other things. So.
Exactly. And it going back to, like you said, humans fear what they don't know or understand.
Right.
We even see what happened to her father and how Maximilian used that phrase or that sentence to explain why the people in that community killed the father, because the father was a vampire. Of course, they were like, we don't want vampires here. And he was like, that's what happens when people don't understand you. Humans fear or fear what they don't understand.
Yep.
And so because they did not seek to understand him, they seek to kill him, which speaks to even a larger conversation on race. It's like not seeking to understand the past, what has happened, understand who we are.
Yep.
It's like you fear us and you think that something's going to happen. It's like, but where's this fear coming from? It's internal because we did not bring that to you.
At all. I mean, we can think George Floyd,
yes,
Ahmaud Arbery, even Breonna Taylor, and in a sense, and countless other people who you fear them for what?
For what?
How? Why? What had they done to you? But it was just their simple presence.
Right, their simple presence.
Their simple just minding their business.
Right. You assume based on stereotypes that they are problematic. You assume, and we all know what assume means. You assume certain things about Black people.
Yep.
That leads to our death. And that has been a problem. Instead of understanding us and really dealing with these stereotypes and how they are indeed stereotypes, they become fact in your mind if you don't seek to understand or to understand us. So yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, things people, when you don't understand, we have to be open to learning more. We have to be open to having the dialogue. Right. Whether you still disagree with me in the end, we need to be open to at least having the dialogue and the conversation.
Right.
We could save many lives having a conversation.
Yes. And then even if you're an ally, you have to understand to be an ally, it's an action term.
Right.
You have to be active. You have to always be willing to learn. You have to always be willing to expand what you think you already know. Right. To have those conversations. True ally, again, never stops. At all. There's no stagnant ally who's like, I know this already. No, then you're not an ally. You're a faux ally, which is fine because that's what you would be. But if you're an ally, you have to constantly work toward learning more to break down these paradigms to really understand the people you're allied with.
There's no intermission.
There's no intermission. You can't be like, I'm tired. I don't feel like being an ally today. That's not how it works.
Or as my students would tell me, there's that ally fatigue.
Yeah.
Really? You say you tired of being an ally today?
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm tired sometimes of what happens to me every day.
Exactly.
But I don't get a chance to say, I'm going to just take a break.
Right. We don't get that opportunity.
We don't get that.
Because if we did, we would have stopped this a long time
ago. Long time ago.
Trust.
So, so when it's all said and done, I mean, Vampire in Brooklyn does a lot. Obviously, we've been able to have various conversations. We've been able to, go into various different dialogues. We've tapped into many different subject areas. And that's really great when a movie allows the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And Eddie Murphy just over time, his filmography, that's a word, right?
Yes.
His filmography has offered an opportunity to tap into his many personalities, his many personas. He's able to depict Blackness in a variety.
Yes. Like you can never forget the barbershop in Coming to America.
Yep. Or we could take a throwback to the Golden Child. Like he kind of was tapping in a little bit in that supernatural, then. He even has a little softer side with Imagine That, where he's, taking care of his daughter and, diving into her fantasies and looking at what's, at what little girls dream about and think about.
Yeah. And even he did that in Dr. Dolittle. Like he nurtured his daughter. One thing I will say, he's killing it as a father.
Yeah. Like
he did that. He's like, my children in real life also, as well as in these movies, but my children want to dream big.
Yes.
Yep. I'm going to nurture their talents. And he's even nurtured, like even outside of being a father in movies or whatnot, he's nurtured talents of other Black comedians and actors and actresses. And which to me is a sign of a great artist.
Yes.
A wonderful artist to really say, okay, I'm going to really include Blackness in my films at the forefront. And so it doesn't always have to be about being Black. We're just Black doing regular things.
Yep.
Like we just are. And that to me is excellent.
Yes. What else we got? Not only, so all these different layers of personalities, personas, ideas, thoughts. What else does, he's just brought a lot to the table as it relates to films.
Yeah.
He's had some crossover and, interesting effects. There's a film that you were telling me about, Mr. Church.
Oh my God, that movie is so amazing. You all need to see Mr. Church, okay? Let me tell you. So Mr. Church is about, I'm not going to tell you. Just watch Mr. Church. But he plays a serious character. It's not a comedy. And so you see this other side of his skill sets. You know how we usually see, some comedians who would cross over into serious films? He did an excellent job with Mr. Church. Please watch it. It's available on Prime. It's awesome. And again, he's done great work already. This just adds to his filmography.
Yeah, yeah. So, he has done a plethora of things. He has brought many of different characters to the table.
Yes.
There's many classics that we know. Okay, so like if you could pick your top 3. Your top 3 Eddie Murphy movies.
I think we should do top 1, because if we do top 3, we might well do top 10. But my top 1 is Harlem Nights.
So my top 3 are, in no order, Harlem Nights, Coming to America, and Trading Places.
Okay, and also I want to mention Life. Life is hilarious. But I'm telling you, Harlem Nights first, though. Harlem Nights, and then other movies fall in as they should.
I have no order, but, definitely his earlier films, I think, were a little biased towards his earlier work. I think that's where he was really in his prime.
I don't know, but Mr. Church got it, though. Like, that falls in there.
There's a few.
I'm doing my 3.
Yeah.
So I want to do Harlem Nights. That's fine. Harlem Nights, Life, and Mr. Church.
Okay. So she puts in a couple of his newer stuff in there, too.
Yes. Life was excellent.
But either way, like his work is like so diverse. Like, yes. I mean, there's so much you could say about what Eddie Murphy is doing and continues to do. The fact that he's brought in a lot of Black folks on the screen. I mean, if you look at pretty much any movie that he's done, particularly his fully Black cast one.
Yeah.
We've seen a long-standing run of Black actors and actresses.
Yes.
Being featured. So, we're not gonna forget what Eddie Murphy brings to the table. Oh, can't even forget Raw, Delirious, his stand-up.
Oh, his stand-up. His skits, SNL.
Yeah.
Like, come on. He came back and just like threw it down. And he came back with Mr. Robinson.
Right.
And that was, I love it. Please watch the SNL skits. Plural, because he did the whole show. Amazing. He was Gumby. He dealt with some of the issues. Just watch it, okay? And
then the way he deals with Dolomite.
Oh my God. Okay, so Dolomite is another one of my good movies from Eddie Murphy. Okay, Dolomite. Let me tell you why. Okay, before we go, because I'm closed out. Dolomite is great because I knew who Rudy Ray Moore was.
Right.
But I did not know all of who he was. I only knew I can identify him for this film.
Right.
But Eddie Murphy came through and really showed how great, he really brought forth the greatness of Rudy Ray Moore. Because the whole fact of him, I'm going to get the money for this film. No one wants me. White people did not want this film. He said, I would do it myself. I would come up with my own group, off pennies. And, but I wonder, did he really steal those jokes from? We'll talk about that. I kind of think he stole those jokes. Anyway, but either way, Eddie Murphy did a great job in that film. Him and other members of the cast.
Right.
It was a fantastic film.
Absolutely.
So that's one of my favorites.
Yes.
Oh
yeah. So we are so excited that you have tuned in with us this season. Like, we had a blast talking about these movies, talking about Lovecraft Country. We're just gonna take a little summer break, gather our listing of what we're gonna bring to y'all in the fall.
Yes.
We would love your suggestions.
Yes.
We would love anything that you all might want to recommend for us to talk about. We're thinking we might, tap into some more horror.
Yes. Yes. And especially since, horror has taken this recent turn. We see it being used to really talk about racism even more.
Right.
And so, Candyman did it and Tales from the Hood did it. But I want to also have more of a conversation of how it's being done now.
Yep.
What does it mean? We have a new creative way of reimagining racism.
Yeah.
And how it is horror. It's scary. It's scary. And now we can use this particular genre to depict it. So I look forward to that. I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely.
And I think, I had a good time talking. I hope Eddie come out with another movie this summer. But I really enjoy. I know he just did come to America. He's probably tired. He did. But I really enjoyed talking about Eddie Murphy because I appreciate how he has put a lot of people on, and how he never really apologized for being Black.
Nope.
How he just was, just like Paul Mooney. Like, it was all about acknowledging who we are, and even acknowledging Black women. Granted, there was some, criticism we talked about during the show, but it was good when he put Della Reese on. You saw this big Black woman who was of a certain age leading a cast in Harlem Nights.
Yep.
Like, what? Yeah. And me being able to see, like, oh my God, she's not a certain, this Coke bottle, thin image, young woman. She was this big one, big, beautiful woman, older than, these young women who are certain. There's nothing wrong with younger women, but to see Blackness in its nuances and ageism, it didn't matter. I know I'm talking on Harlem Nights when we need to talk about Vampire and Brooklyn, but I had to go back to that. It was hilarious. But, I appreciate him really showing the nuances of our Blackness.
Absolutely. And, he will always, like I said, be a figure in the Black community in Hollywood and just everything. So it was good that we ended with that. I think that was a good one for us to close out on with this season. Like I said, we really look forward to what you all, might want to suggest for us. Yes. Like I said, we'll be back come August. We will. Hit y'all again with season 2. And I think anything else you want to put out? It.
I'm just thankful that you all were with us during this first initial season of Conversations with Beloved and Kindred. Yeah. Thank you all for being with us. We really appreciate that. And we really look forward to the second season. So please reach out to us if you want us to evaluate or discuss any film or series.
Yep, we open. We can talk about whatever. So, yes. So I leave you with these parting words, as always. Till the next time, remember the past is a living thing. The present prepares for us. And the future is ours.
It is.
We'll see you next time. Have a great one. Enjoy your summers.
Yes, enjoy your summer.